All right. Well, hey, everybody. I think that was recording for a minute there, Heather. Sorry about that. Dr.
That's all
Bulow
right.
here with Around Cranberry Township and your region's spinal expert at Revive Upper Cervical Chiropractic. But today, as we do on a regular basis, I get the pleasure of sitting down with a local business owner or service professional. And today we're hanging out with Heather Cherry of Heather Cherry Consulting Agency. Heather, thanks for taking the time.
Yes, thanks
Say
for
hi.
having me.
Absolutely.
Hi.
And Heather, you've been, we're talking with Heather. Heather's kind of, I wouldn't say new to the area. If you've been in the area 6 years, you're a resident now. I officially dub you. One of the things I always remind people, one of the reasons we started these interviews was to connect you to your community, right? And there's a lot of people that are relatively new to the Cranberry area and aren't necessarily familiar of its roots, of some of the really interesting and beautiful and artistic places and businesses and services in the region. And so in this interview, what I'd like to do, and I'm hoping everyone can get some value out of this, is we're going to learn a lot about Heather and what she offers to the community. And it's kind of an interesting one because it actually speaks to you guys that are business owners and service professionals yourself when we talk about advertising, consulting, and copy, and what that even is, for those that may not even know. But I'm also curious, Heather, to pick your brain in terms of what you've come to love about the area that made your family stay. You know what I mean? And so this may be a little bit of both. You know, I want to get your insights as a member of the community for maybe people who are new to the community. But then, of course, your professional knowledge. I'd love to pick your brain on that if that's okay, too.
Sure.
So for those that don't know, go ahead and give your, and again, if you're not a business or service owner yourself, this is what we call your elevator pitch, your 60-second commercial. It's basically Heather's way of telling you who she is professionally, and you can include in that kind of how you came to the area. But what's the nutshell there?
Yeah. So I am a marketing, consultant and copywriter. I just authored a book, Market Your Ass Off. So
That's right.
for small businesses, it's simple strategy for smart business marketing. I work as a freelancer. I also work full-time as a copywriter. So I create copy and I consult with small businesses on their marketing initiatives, social media marketing, content marketing, pretty much any kind of marketing that small businesses do. So
that's right. And just to dive a little deeper, and then I'm again curious to get a little bit about what brought you here, but on that service that you provide, what, the term copy became new to me even. I mean, I've been in business now. We've owned the practice and run it here in Cranberry for 12 years. And I only started learning about this thing called copy like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And how would you define that? Because I know there's a, strict, one word definition, but then there's the kind of the bigger, there's layers to that. There's an importance to that, so this idea of paying someone as a copywriter, it's not like copywriting a product that's yours, but creating copy for your business. Yeah. What is that? How would you describe that?
Yeah. So it's really anything that the audience reads. So your blog, emails, press releases, your website. I do a lot of website copywriting. That is like mine. I love to do that. And I really love to write all of it. So I don't know. I just get in there and love to create good content that people want to read. So yeah, anything anybody would read basically is copy.
Now, those that aren't maybe as knowledgeable might say, but I can write my own stuff. Like, that's not even that big of a deal, right? I mean, isn't that something super simple, which I know isn't true, and I don't mean to offend you, but just because there may be some people in their subconscious saying like, okay, that's odd. I could just go and write my own blog or write my own thing. But what's the significance of having a professional kind of help in that area?
Yeah, so I hear that a lot, and I don't disagree. I mean, everybody can be a good writer, right? But the key is, and the thing that differentiates me from other copywriters is not only am I writing a story, right? But I'm also thinking about the target audience. I'm taking into consideration how that content will be used. What is the ultimate goal of that purpose? So it's a little bit more than just like writing a story. So each blog post that I even write, there's always a goal behind it. So am I trying to bring awareness to my brand? Am I educating about a service? Am I, trying to push a product? So everything it's like this all, like you have to kind of know everything when you're writing. So it just goes beyond just simply like putting things together. So, and it's really just many years of practice and understanding marketing and writing and kind of like meshing it all together. So
Yeah.
anybody that's a good writer, like academically, could absolutely do it, but you have to have that like foundation, because otherwise it's not the way that like web copy is read is completely different than, say like a magazine article or like an academic paper. And you also have to take into account search engine optimization, which is, how Google reads your stuff. So, and it's just like all these factors come together. So that's why hiring a copywriter is important, because, anybody can put stuff online, but if it's not working for you, then there's really no point in even doing it. So, yeah.
And I think you just said something there that I had even forgotten, the psychology and the place that we're all at when we're reading online versus reading a magazine versus reading a book. It's all kind of a different psychology there, which is so cool. And that's the interesting side, I think, of branding and marketing that a lot of people don't think about. And it's relatively misunderstood. There was a book out there that I don't know if you've ever heard of, or anyone on the podcast, or I'm going to turn this into a podcast one day. The video here has heard of, but it's called primal branding. Do you ever hear of primal branding?
I think I have. Yeah.
Yeah. We rebranded about 5 to 7 years ago to Revive. We were with a franchise before, and it was just creating a name. The name Revive, right? And it was this process. I overanalyze everything. That's my job. But I looked, it was so hard to find a book on creating a name, just that thought process that you go through, and how, to your point, brand, everything has to be kind of together, right? And I think having someone in charge of that, for me, that's a simple problem. It's grammar and little spelling errors and things like that are so not professional. And so that's something I'm working on. And we may have to talk about that. But okay, so just getting back to your story a little bit, because that's what I love to do. And for those that may want to know a little bit more about you before maybe seeking you out, just because that's the way I am. That's the whole impetus between this from this around Cranberry initiative. But we were talking before. You said you've been in the area for 6 years. Is that right?
Yep, that's right.
Very cool. And you're married and have a 9-year-old son, right?
Yes.
Awesome. And something you said when we were chatting, I thought was really cool. You said that you wanted him to have, not that there was an option for you to come from, but just come from a more rural country town out in Pennsylvania to Cranberry is a little bit busier. You know what I mean? All roads go through Cranberry, as I like to say. So it's a pretty big hub. Do you live in Cranberry, Wexford, or what area of the city do you live in?
No, I live in Butler, so I'm a little bit more
fantastic.
Cranberry. Yeah, but I'm like on the edge, so I'm kind of. I'm like in between.
We lived in the last 9 years out in Connoquenessing, which is, for those that don't know, halfway between Evans City and Butler. And yeah, when I say around Cranberry, I really mean probably Butler in the northeast, Newcastle in the northwest, all the way down to probably North Allegheny. It's a pretty big region that Cranberry really is the central hub of, And so what have you found? I'm just curious now, you as a resident, as a professional, as a service provider, what are some of the things that you found in the area that kind of made you stay? You know what I mean? You guys came just knowing some people and kind of excited to try out a new area, but what are some of your favorite hot spots, especially for your son? I'm kind of curious if you found any cool sporting things or things that he loves to do in the Butler or Cranberry area.
Yeah. So that was a big reason we wanted to move down here, because my husband grew up loving sports, but he was limited to like, I think, football and baseball. And I wanted him to be able to explore anything that he wanted to try. So, I love being here because, we can be in Pittsburgh in like an hour. Cranberry is even closer. And there's just so many different things that he can get into. And he's really into science. So I've been able to put him in like science camps and take advantage of, the science museum and just really like nurture that love of science. Cool. And, he wants to be a mechanical engineer when he grows up. So just feel like there's just so many great opportunities to keep nurturing that as he grows, and even, some really great universities that he can attend, or at least have an option to attend, that are close to home for that. So, I mean, that's really what has kept us here is just, we're so close to our family. So we are about 2 hours from most of our extended family. And, but we're here and we can do, we can go to a concert or we can go to, not right now, obviously, but
That's right.
yeah, we can pretty much do anything. And I also love that, because being back up there, it was like 3 hours, a 3 hour drive. So if you wanted to go to a concert, it had to be like a weekend thing, now it's like go. So I love that. The accessibility, we're so close to every like major highway. So
Absolutely. Now, just to give a shout out for some specific resources for those that may be listening. And when you mentioned kind of science, mechanical engineering, for those that have never been, and again, I don't know the status of it right now with, the COVID world we're hopefully rounding out of. But the Children's Museum in Pittsburgh is amazing. They have the lab. I don't know if you've been there with your 9-year-old, the science lab, where I believe they partnered with Mellon University, Carnegie Mellon, I think, for some of their 3D modeling stuff. And it's really incredible. You mentioned the science camp. Is that local to here? Was that down in Pittsburgh? I'm curious what camp you're referring to.
Yeah, so I'm referring to the BC3 camp. So they have the kids campus every summer. They didn't have it last year, this year, I guess. But every summer they would have all these, camps for anybody, but science specific. So I put him in everything because they would do, like Legos. And so it was really like catering to the mechanical engineer, and he would learn, how to build things. And it's really cool. And they also, I don't know who offers it, but at his school, they would come in for 4 or 5 weeks. It was called Mad Science. So, there's just a lot of programming for science around here. And I love that because he just takes it all in and he really enjoys it. So.
Yep. I grew up volunteering. I was homeschooled growing up. My kids are homeschooled now. And I grew up volunteering at the Carnegie Science Center, which is another amazing resource nearby. We will definitely, I want to put a link in this video when it goes up. We'll put a link for the BC3 camp. I think I've seen that come across my dashboard at some point, and we definitely want to get our kids plugged in there as well. So now let's go back to your professional kind of resources a little bit here, because we just talk about some community things. It just made me think. Okay, number one, on this video we'll put all the connections for people to get a hold of you. But are there any kind of quick tips or resources that you could give to some business owners and service professionals in the area that they can look into and take action on right now? Any nuggets from your book that might inspire them to go out and get your book, or any kind of web resources or things that you found really help small businesses in the area, business owners and service providers?
Yeah. So are you talking specific, other service providers to talk about, or?
Oh, no, I'm curious just what you found in your expertise of creating copy. And for example, one of the things in the Around Cranberry page and group, for those that don't know, this will be put on the page, right, where we do updates and interviews. And then we have the Around Cranberry Facebook group where you as a community can communicate with each other. Okay. And one of the things that we do right now is we allow for businesses to post in the group. And I don't know how that'll evolve in the future, but right now it's allowed, pending that businesses write some copy in what they're sharing. Because in my world, in my opinion, the group is it's like the volunteer fire hall that has everyone comes and hangs out, and there's a bulletin board where you can post your stuff. But it's kind of annoying if you just come in with a bullhorn and say, hey, I've got this sale coming up, come buy my hot dogs, and then walk out of the room. That's a little bit rude, if you ask me. So I have this no spam rule, which is to say you have to provide some personal context, not just your ad, And so I'm just curious if in your world, have you seen some flaws or some things that need to be updated in the clients that you've helped? What are some easy things that people need to look out for that you've found that would be good tips for them to do, whether on their own, or if they realize that they're not quite able to do it, they can obviously reach out to you for help. What are maybe some pointers that are common in your world?
Yeah. So I get people reach out to me when they are things are not consistent. So, they might be they posted something maybe 6 months ago, or, and I'm always cleaning up their brand. So I think be very aware of that. How frequently are you posting, first of all, what is the quality of the content you are posting second? So, especially right now, and I actually worked with a client, they said, we're not getting any leads. And I was like, well, that's because we're doing like a sales pitch every post, right? People don't want to hear that. And that's actually been like a trend for quite a while. So it's kind of more of that content marketing. Like that's been like pre-COVID, but I think it's going to become really like front and center because of COVID, because people just don't want that content that's just like, hey, like buy my product. They want that value, and they want to know like, how can your product help me? How can your service help me as a person? Like, why should I take, my money and spend it at your business? So, and that's really kind of like the foundation of content marketing. It's really just creating content that is like a value add, and you're educating or bringing awareness, but it always kind of circles back around to how you can help. So like somebody in like your business, and saying like, hey, like we're offering, a 2-for-1 special, right? You really want to educate them on how, chiropractic is beneficial, like long-term. So, and it's kind of, people kind of get like scared about that because they're like, well, if I'm not selling, like I'm not going to get any leads. But the key is, if you're always just being helpful, then it's kind of like, well, then when they need you, they're going to come to you because you've already helped them. So, and I think if brands become more aware of that, and I know like, and I always think like, am I just, because I'm so aware of it, I'm always like, if a brand is just kind of like talking at me, I tune them out completely. And I'm just like, I'm not from you. But if I'm getting like that email with that content, that's like, wow, that's, made me think differently, or, wow, I didn't realize that, or, they took that time to educate me. I'm always like, yes, I'm going to support you. So, and that's like, I don't know if that's me, because that's like my world, but that's really the thing that we're going to see. And I think if people become aware of that now, and I think that they kind of seen like how that kind of unfolded at the beginning of the year when things kind of just like blew up, and the people that were kind of already doing that may have seen, like they were like, oh, we already have our foundation, and just kept building off of that. And I think the businesses that maybe were like, I'm not doing that, probably seen more of, an abrupt shift than those that did not. So
that's great. I mean, that's so true. Just the mindfulness of being intentful and relevant to the world we now live in, which is a very vulnerable world. Social media just exposes everything. So you're either genuine or you're not. People are going to pick up on that, right?
Yeah.
So that's awesome. I really appreciate that. Just because I want to spotlight your book a little bit. We didn't talk too much about it, and then we'll kind of close this down. But tell us about the book. Like, what made you write it? What are some of the things that you're most excited about for it? What are people going to be able to do having once read it that they didn't know or able to do beforehand? I'm curious about it.
Yeah. So I wrote the book. It was just kind of like an answer to all the businesses that I wasn't able to help, because I started my business because I love small businesses. And I just envision like that small mom and pop, like restaurant, just like taking their social media and like launching it and just blowing up their business. Right. But it always came down to their budget. And, we live in a world where we have to earn money. And so they didn't pay me, but I was like, I just had this desire to help them. So I was like, what can I do? And I have a blog that people can go to, but a lot of them really aren't online. So I was like, how can I solve this dilemma where I'm still kind of offering my services at more of like a price point that makes sense for them? So I wrote a book, and it's basically like everything, like each chapter is a different marketing topic. So chapter 1 is branding and brand identity. And then, and I just basically talk about like what everything is. And then we move into target audience, the basics of websites, what search engine optimization is, content marketing, social media marketing, email marketing. So I talk about the different things, and it's a guide. So it's not like a end all be all, and it's not like somebody's going to read this and be like a marketing whiz. It's more of that, like getting that grounding and saying like, well, I don't really know how social media marketing works with my website. And that was a lot of the things that I saw. So a lot of businesses would come to me and be like, I don't really want to buy a website because a good website is kind of expensive. So or they wanted to DIY their website and then it was really bad. So it was kind of like, okay, let me show you how to do it well on your own. And that's basically what this is. So it's kind of just giving everybody the little tidbits that they need to kind of then take whatever they think will benefit their business fits them well, and then kind of run with it. So, and I always like laugh because before I wrote this, I was going to work with this one editor and she's like, well, this is everything that people can Google. And I was like, well, yeah, but if they don't know what to Google, how are they going to like figure it out? Right. And if you Google social media marketing, you're going to get down a path and you're going to be overwhelmed. So this is really
overwhelming.
Yeah. It's just like this guidebook that says, okay, here's what it is. Here's what you can do next. So when people read this, it's a very quick read. It's only like 90 pages, but I wrote it, very like snappy. So they don't have to invest a lot of time into this. I'm not, I didn't, because I know these people are busy. So they don't want to read a 200-page book and learn 100 different things. So, so they'll take this and then they can kind of just go from there. And the really cool thing that I'm excited about, and let me see if I can find one. I included some QR codes in the book. So if you see a QR code, then it takes you to my website with downloadable resources. And I did that because one of the things, I've read a lot of nonfiction books in preparation to write this. And one of the things that I found frustrating is, they talk about all these ideas and then it's just like, how do I really implement them? So I wanted to solve that solve that problem, I guess. So I created some worksheets to kind of build off of the chapters that I felt like, really needed that more of that, like, written guide. And one of my very favorites, and I used it, I actually taught a course with it last year, but it's, let me see if I can make sure I reference it in the right chapter. It's on buyer personas. So
I'm sorry, say that one more time. The course was on what?
Well, it was on like target audiences, but the worksheet is on how to create your buyer persona. So it really just kind of so you think about who your target audience is and what they want. And so when you know that, then you can create marketing more effectively for your business. So, a lot of the times businesses, they come at marketing and they're just like, I'm going to market to everybody. And then they get no leads. Probably because they didn't know who their target audience was. So, so I'm not going to necessarily tell people that, like a consumer, like, hey, you should hire me to write your website. Cause I'm like, I don't need a website. Right. So I have to know who my audience is. And that's really what that worksheet's meant to do. It's meant to get you thinking and really just kind of make that persona and just go off of there. So, and there's one resource that wasn't up online yet, and I'm going to be posting it. It's how to use Canva. So Canva is one of my favorite digital tools. It's a little bit newer. I'm sure a lot of people have heard of it, and it's crazy. Like how I've started using it like 2 years ago, and the way that it's just kept building off of itself is amazing. But I find that people don't really know how to use it or like what to do with it. So I created this, I'm going to post it as a blog, but I created this guide. So it has, like how to, get started. And I think that's the biggest obstacle that the people that read my book face is they don't know where to begin. So when they read the book, they will know where to begin.
Hold on, you there?
Yeah.
Oh gosh. Okay. I hope you are still with me. I had some internet signal issues and some calls coming through my phone, and I really apologize. No. You were on a roll, and then I lost you for a moment. But you were talking about we lost you when you talking about the resources and the QR codes, which I think is brilliant. And you were talking about one of the ones that are not in the book, but is going up on your website. Which one was that?
Yeah, the Beginner's Guide to Canva.
To what now?
It's called the Beginner's Guide to Canva. So Canva is it's an online graphic design tool. So it's really meant to, it's kind of takes that. I don't know if it's an obstacle, but it allows the average person to create really high quality graphics. So I'm not a trained graphic designer, but I did design my book cover myself in Canva. So it's really cool. There's all kinds of templates. So you can kind of take a template and manipulate it And, you know, I mean, it's still, you kind of have to have like some like design knowledge, but you don't have to know how to use Adobe, which is a very complex product.
Yeah.
It's really just meant to, you know, if you're going to create social media posts, it's a great resource because you can go in there and create your own post and have some really high quality stuff with just a few clicks. So, and I created that guide because I would tell people about Canva and they didn't really know how to use it or what it was. So I created this like how-to guide and some little tips and tricks. So I'm really excited about that because I mean, you can subscribe to the premium Canva for just a few dollars a month. And it's, I mean, you get like, it's insane, all the stuff you get. So it's really affordable and it's a great resource.
That's fantastic. I really, honestly, Heather, I appreciate your time. And it's funny getting to know you here as you get into like the meat of what you do. I can see the excitement.
Yeah.
I'm going like, man, startups need to call Heather because I can tell you're passionate about helping them out and kind of, because it is, and that's actually, I don't want to put words in your mouth here. What I usually end with is kind of what excites you the most about the industry. I think I have an idea, but I want to hear you say it. So I'll give you that question in terms of like, you know, business, running your own business, whether it's a brick and mortar location or a service, is not easy work. So I'm curious what keeps you going in the work that you do. What is your why, so to speak? What drives you to keep doing what you do?
So my why is just that like feeling when you write that content and someone's just like, wow, like I didn't know my business had that or offered that. And I think some of the coolest examples, like when I start writing website copy, I usually just interview somebody and I'm like, just tell me about your business. And they're like, well, I don't really have anything to say. And I'm like, talking. And then I compile it in a way and they're like, wow, I didn't even like think that was important, or I didn't know that was relevant to my business. And I'm just like, and I love that. Like, I love being able to pull that story out of them because that's what a lot of businesses are missing online. They think that they just need to tell people like, come into my business, but that's not what people are drawing people to your business. And, you know, and I think that people are humble. They don't want to brag or they get nervous. Like, that's why, you know, in the beginning, I get a little nervous on these video calls. So, but, you know, it's just important to do that. And I think if you can kind of take a step back and allow somebody to tell your story in a different way, it's so surprising. And that's what I love. And I just love,
like a photographer. It makes me think of like a photographer with words.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
Very much so.
You see that picture and you go, wow, how did you do that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. And it's so cool. And that's really the difference between, you know, hiring a copywriter versus doing it yourself, because you're really just taking a step back and allowing them to find the story. So, and I'm really unique in that aspect because long ago, I worked as a journalist at a small newspaper up where I used to live. And it really taught me how to interview and just, I mean, I had to find stories in a small town where there was no news. So you know how to like listen and you know how to, you know, what's important and you know what people are going to care about. So that's really the difference. And I just love doing that. I love little tidbits and then when they tell me like, hey, my website converted or I got a new client, I'm like, yay. So that's a secondary why.
That's right. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, Heather, I'm going to wrap it up here. I really do appreciate your time. And in a minute, I'll give you the last word for the community, you know, but first, I just want to thank everyone for watching. And hopefully you've learned as much as I have. I've been taking little mental notes and literal ones with Heather, and I apologize for the technical difficulties and appreciate you following through with us. The connection got a little weird there halfway through. But if you know anyone that is a local business owner, service professional that would like to get their message out, please do contact myself with Around Cranberry and also Heather, obviously, for professional services. Around Cranberry is just about you guys in the community. So if there's someone you want to highlight, just let us know. But other than that, Heather, any last words for the folks hanging out with us, whether community members or business owners or anyone in the Around Cranberry community?
Yeah, well, I want to say thank you for having me. And side note, if you are going to DIY your marketing, don't be discouraged because it's a long-term solution to a short-term problem, and just keep going.
That's right. It's a process like everything in life, right? Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Everybody, thanks for hanging out with us. We will see you around Cranberry. Bye now.
Bye.
All righty. 1 second here. Oh, we're still recording.
Okay.
Well, all right.